For centuries, Lisbon stood as the jewel of the Atlantic, the wealthy, magnificent capital of a global empire. Its harbors teemed with riches from the four corners of the earth. Its streets buzzed with commerce, and its churches soared to the heavens, a testament to its devout faith. On All Saints' Day, 1755, this world of beauty and order was brought to its knees in an instant. But the Lisbon earthquake was more than a catastrophic natural disaster. It was a quake that didn't just topple buildings. It shattered the foundations of an entire civilization's belief system. The very ground trembled, not just with seismic force, but with profound questions about faith, divine providence, and humanity's place in the universe. This is the story of a city that fell, and a philosophical debate that rose from its ashes, igniting the fires of the Enlightenment. Before it was a symbol of catastrophe, Lisbon was a symbol of glory. In the mid-18th century, it stood as one of the most magnificent capitals in the world, the heart of the vast Portuguese Empire and a jewel glittering on the edge of the Atlantic. Its power was tangible, built upon centuries of exploration and a global commercial network that was the envy of Europe. To walk its streets was to witness a world at the zenith of its prosperity, a city seemingly blessed by both divine grace and immeasurable wealth. At its core, Lisbon's grandeur was fueled by a relentless flow of riches from its colonial holdings. The city served as the central nerve of a sprawling network that spanned South America, Africa, and the far reaches of Asia. From the fertile lands of Brazil, a seemingly endless supply of gold and diamonds poured into the coffers of the monarchy and its elite. Ships laden with exotic spices from the East Indies, sugar and coffee from the New World, and vast fortunes in other goods docked in its immense harbor, transforming the waterfront into a bustling, multilingual marketplace. This wealth did more than just fill royal vaults. It financed the city's opulent lifestyle and its monumental architectural ambitions. The physical appearance of Lisbon in 1755 was a testament to this immense fortune. The city was a glorious tapestry of ornate palaces, grand churches, and elegant monasteries, all constructed in a distinctive and extravagant style. The royal palace, located on the waterfront and housing one of the most extensive libraries in Europe, was a masterpiece of Manueline and Baroque architecture. Not far from it stood the magnificent Opera House, inaugurated just a year earlier, a lavish symbol of the city's cultural sophistication. The narrow, winding medieval streets of the old city were a maze of vibrant life, leading to vast public squares and monuments that celebrated Portugal's imperial history. Lisbon was a city of contradictions, a maze of ancient alleys intertwined with avenues of modern Baroque splendor. Its population was as rich and diverse as the goods in its markets. Sailors, merchants, and ambassadors from dozens of nations filled the streets alongside a massive, cosmopolitan population of Portuguese, Africans, Brazilians, and people from its Asian territories. The city was a melting pot of cultures, languages, and ideas, all converging around the hub of global trade. Religious piety was also a defining characteristic of Lisbon. The power of the church was immense, with countless priests, monks, and nuns, and hundreds of grand churches and monasteries dominating the skyline. Faith was a central pillar of daily life, and for many, the city's prosperity was seen as a direct sign of God's favor. Lisbon's cultural and intellectual life was also on the rise, though not yet a global center on par with London or Paris. The city was home to the Marquis of Pombal, a powerful and ambitious minister who was quietly working to modernize the nation's economy and administration. There were academies and scientific societies, and a small but growing community of Enlightenment thinkers. However, the prevailing worldview was still deeply rooted in traditional religious doctrine, which saw the world as a divinely ordered system, where everything had a purpose and a place. The city's fortune was seen as part of this divine order, an unshakable and eternal truth. On the morning of November 1st, 1755, this magnificent city woke up to a new day. It was All Saints' Day, a major religious holiday. The churches were packed with worshippers, candles were lit, and a profound sense of peace and divine presence filled the air. The city's inhabitants, dressed in their finest, were moving through the streets toward their places of worship, their minds filled with prayers and gratitude for their beautiful city and the bounty it provided. They were utterly, completely unaware that this was to be their last peaceful morning, that the very ground beneath their feet was about to betray them, and that the world they knew would, in an instant, be changed forever. The stage was set for a catastrophe that would not only destroy a city, but challenge the very foundation of an entire era's philosophical and religious thought. The morning of November 1st, 1755, was a day of profound spiritual significance for the people of Lisbon. It was All Saints' Day, and the city's hundreds of churches were overflowing with worshippers. Candles flickered across altars, incense hung heavy in the air, and a devout sense of peace filled the hearts of the thousands gathered to pray. This was the precise moment the earth chose to deliver its judgment. Around 9:40 a.m., the ground began to tremble. It was not a small tremor. It was a violent, massive convulsion that lasted for several minutes. Eyewitnesses described the initial shock as an immense roar, like thunder from deep within the ground. The earth moved in violent waves, causing the streets to undulate like the surface of a stormy sea. Buildings, designed for static stability, could not withstand such a powerful fluid force. Within moments, Lisbon's grand and beautiful architecture, its magnificent palaces, its opera house, and most tragically, its hundreds of churches, began to collapse in a cascade of stone, timber, and dust. For the thousands of people packed inside the churches, this was a death sentence. The heavy stone roofs, supported by immense columns, buckled and fell, burying entire congregations. The sacred space, once a sanctuary, became a tomb. The air filled with the deafening sound of collapsing masonry, the terrified screams of the dying, and the terrified cries of those who miraculously escaped. The initial earthquake had reduced the beautiful city to a wasteland of rubble and broken stone in a matter of minutes. Those who survived the first shock and managed to flee ran toward the open space of the harbor, seeking safety away from the collapsing buildings. But the disaster was only just beginning. As the earth settled, the ocean itself seemed to turn on the city. The earthquake, whose epicenter was in the Atlantic, had triggered a massive tsunami. With the tide already out due to the earthquake, the waters of the Tagus River receded, exposing the seafloor. Curious onlookers, some still in a state of shock, ventured onto the mudflats to investigate. Moments later, a wall of water up to 20 feet high surged up the river channel, sweeping away the entire lower part of the city, including the harbor, the docks, and the thousands of people gathered there. Entire ships were smashed against the stone quays and dragged into the heart of the city, adding to the destruction. But even this was not the end. The destruction had unleashed a third, equally devastating wave of calamity: fire. The thousands of lit candles in the churches and the hearths still burning in homes ignited the debris fields across the city. With no one to fight the flames, and with strong winds fanning the inferno, the fires raged uncontrollably for 3 days and 3 nights. The burning rubble of the city's grand library, containing tens of thousands of priceless books and manuscripts, lit up the night sky, a terrifying monument to the loss of knowledge. Lisbon, once the jewel of the Atlantic, was now a smoldering ruin. Over the course of a single day, it had been subjected to the combined fury of a massive earthquake, a devastating tsunami, and an uncontrollable firestorm. The death toll was immense, estimated to be between 10,000 and 100,000 people. The survivors wandered through a landscape of utter devastation, their world shattered, their faith shaken, and their understanding of divine order utterly destroyed. The disaster had not only erased a city, it had opened a profound and painful crisis of faith and reason that would echo across Europe for the rest of the century. The ashes of Lisbon had barely cooled when the true impact of the earthquake began to unfold. The destruction was physical, but its consequences were profoundly intellectual, political, and philosophical. The disaster of November 1st, 1755, did more than just level a city. It shook the very foundations of an entire era's belief system, serving as a powerful and brutal catalyst for the Enlightenment. The immediate and most critical response came from the political sphere, personified by the resolute figure of Sebastião José de Carvalho y Melo, the powerful and autocratic prime minister, better known as the Marquis of Pombal. Arriving on the scene of the devastation, he was met with a scene of utter chaos and despair. His famous, pragmatic command cut through the panic. Now what? We bury the dead and feed the living. Pombal's response was swift, ruthless, and remarkably modern. He immediately imposed order on the chaos, organizing burial details, securing food and water, and preventing looting with military force. But Pombal's genius lay not just in emergency management. It was in his vision for rebuilding. Instead of allowing the city to be reconstructed haphazardly, he commissioned a systematic and rational urban plan. His engineers famously tested the design by having troops march around scale models to simulate an earthquake, creating the world's first large-scale anti-seismic construction plan. Pombal's Lisbon, with its wide, straight avenues, uniform housing blocks, and rational layout, became a physical manifestation of Enlightenment ideals. It was a city designed by reason, not medieval tradition, a lasting testament to human ingenuity overcoming natural calamity. Simultaneously, the earthquake sparked the birth of a new science, seismology. Pombal, determined to understand the cause of the event, ordered a scientific inquiry, sending a questionnaire to every parish in the country. The questions were groundbreaking for their time, asking for details about the duration of the shaking, the direction of the shocks, and the behavior of animals. This marked one of the first organized attempts to collect systematic data about an earthquake, moving the phenomenon from the realm of divine wrath to the realm of natural science. The tragedy had provided the impetus for a new empirical approach to understanding the earth itself. However, the most profound and far-reaching impact was felt in the intellectual salons of Europe. The destruction of a deeply religious city on a holy day, with so many innocents perishing in churches, posed a direct and devastating challenge to the prevailing optimistic philosophy of the day, particularly the ideas of Gottfried Leibniz, who had argued that we live in the best of all possible worlds. This philosophical crisis found its most eloquent voice in Voltaire, the French Enlightenment titan. He was profoundly shaken by the event, seeing in it a brutal refutation of all comforting certainties. In his famous poem on the Lisbon disaster, he launched a direct attack on philosophical optimism, asking how a benevolent God could preside over such a senseless, indiscriminate horror. The poem was a howl of pain and outrage, arguing that no rationalization could justify the suffering of so many. He later immortalized this critique in his satirical masterpiece, Candide, where the naive protagonist's journey through a world filled with cruelty and suffering repeatedly disproves his teacher as relentless mantra that all is for the best. Voltaire's work made the Lisbon earthquake a powerful symbol for the struggle against blind faith and the need to confront the reality of evil and suffering head-on. Not everyone agreed with Voltaire's conclusion. His contemporary, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, offered a powerful counter-argument. In his letter to Voltaire, he shifted the blame from God or nature to humanity itself. He argued that the true tragedy was not the earthquake itself, but the human choices that made it so deadly. The foolish decision to build a city with 7-story houses in a densely populated area. If people had lived dispersed in wooden houses, as in the countryside, the death toll would have been minimal. Rousseau's view placed the responsibility squarely on man's social structures and urban planning, advocating for a return to nature and a reform of society itself. The Lisbon earthquake thus became a pivotal event in the history of ideas. It provided the ultimate test case for the competing philosophies of the Enlightenment. It forced thinkers to question divine providence, to consider the role of human responsibility, and to seek answers not in theological dogma, but in rational inquiry and scientific observation. Today, the rebuilt city of Lisbon stands as a living museum of this transformative moment. Its orderly streets and robust buildings are a tangible memorial to a political vision born from disaster. And in the books of Voltaire and Rousseau, the echo of the earthquake remains a powerful reminder that some events are so catastrophic that they can shatter not only stone and mortar, but also the very ideas that define an age, paving the way for a new, more reasoned and more secular world. The quake may have lasted only minutes, but its aftershocks resonated for centuries.